Hi everyone, welcome back to Pine View. Today I'm in Brooklyn, New York with Jinha Lee, who's the CEO and co-founder of Spatial that are creating the world's best immersive experience. And we're going to ask him a few questions about his entrepreneurial journey, his product development, vision for the company, and his lessons learned as an entrepreneur in the US for the last 9 years. So welcome to the show, Jinha.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me here.
Yeah, so I've known you from the very beginning of your entrepreneurial journey. Before we dive into that, tell us about what did you do before, what's your background, and how did all these experiences sort of come to founding Spatial?
Yeah, it's been a long journey to think, but so growing up, I was really passionate about 3D design and architecture and craft, but my parents didn't necessarily think of art or design as a job. I chose to kind of major technologies instead, like computer science and electrical engineering. But I've always been looking at like how do we combine this kind of spatial design with technology, and the AR and VR was like a natural, logical step for me to kind of merge this like passion and my major, and that's sort of how I got into the AR and VR. So when I got to the MIT Media Lab, for my master's degree, I was mainly looking at how do we bring this digital computing from the screen to the physical space, so make it more spatial and collaborative, but ultimately tangible and physical. Like how do we merge this digital computing with the physical reality? That was one of my main focus during my graduate studies. And some of my work that I did at the MIT was picked up by YouTube algorithm, and it got viral, and just got called up by TED conference to speak at their event. So I got to speak about like when we bring this digital computing to the physical 3D space, showing off some of my research. The fact that the notion that computing can be in the space and 3D but if you think about like why 3D and spatial computing matters, there are many different factors, but one of the biggest potential that I saw when we bring computing to the 3D space, there are many things can happen, but one of the most important change compared to the personal computing is that now with this 3D shared medium, you can use this computing, you can use this user interface together as a team, as a group. It's a very important notion because the computing has been pushed to become more and more personal, like with this personal phone. People are kind of stuck on their phone scrolling through, versus if we bring this to the 3D shared space, like space between you and I, we can be together, get connected online, but it can be shared. So I thought it was like really powerful notion to bring people into this 3D shared computing space. That's an AR and VR, the augmented reality, virtual reality was fascinating to me. I think it was around 2016 when Microsoft launched the HoloLens device, which is a groundbreaking augmented reality device, which at least back in the day, of course we have more advanced technologies today. And when I saw that, it was shocking because I thought the AR, the augmented reality, would stay in the research lab for a while, but it was a product that you can just buy. I mean, it was field of view was somewhat limited, and there's not that much you can do, but it was still pretty surprisingly good in terms of creating this perception of okay, you have this 3D holographic display, graphics floating in front of you that can be shared with other people. I was thinking to myself, maybe in 3 to 4 years of timeline, we're gonna get some version of that's useful for the indoor computing, like office space and stuff. It may not happen. If it doesn't happen, if I start this company now, at least we get to tell the world that this is the future that we believe in, and that's the worst case scenario, even if it doesn't scale, and then we're gonna figure out what next. So that was 8-9 years ago, and so that's how we started the company.
The early days of Spatial. So you had this rough idea that VR, XR, 3D computing may take off. Hardware is dependent on these big companies to really roll it out. How did you start the company? Because I know you studied in the US, but you were working in Korea. So tell us about the early days of Spatial.
I was working at Samsung at the time, basically renovating the smart TVs, turning them into more of a hub for collaboration. And I was basically trying to implement what AR should do, like using the big displays in the room. How do we make the TVs more of a hub for collaboration and artistic visualization and stuff like that? When I saw the HoloLens, I was like, maybe it's the US or Silicon Valley is where the most cutting edge innovation is happening. I should maybe consider going back. And so I came back to US. We chose New York instead of Silicon Valley as a first headquarter, primarily because I had this notion that if I start the company to be about not just innovating technologies, but changing, somehow influencing the culture of the world. And to me, it's like New York is an interesting ground for educating myself to get exposed to different diverse cultures. But it was still like a technology hub, had a better exposure to different culture coming from different backgrounds. So we started from New York. It was such an experience. I came to the US for the first time when I was 24, and it was not easy. We honestly started with a bunch of experiments of what we can do with AR. I was pretty fixated on this collaborative use cases, but it was kind of unclear until we had this first demo of one employee who was working from San Francisco at the time, and we were in New York, and we were both wearing headset. We built in his avatar so that he can present his design from San Francisco physically, but virtually in New York. So we're essentially sharing our meeting room in New York and their meeting room in San Francisco and virtually connecting it like a holodeck a little bit. It was like pretty clunky avatar and nothing was really working, but we saw a glimpse of spark where this may work, and the idea was like, how do we create this meeting, the sense of meeting where everyone is present in the room, but without the constraints of the physical location. So it was essentially like 3D Zoom for AR and VR. So we launched about a year and a half from the foundation of the company, and the product got featured at Microsoft's keynote. Satya Nadella called our company name on their keynote stage, and we were happy. And and then we're mostly serving the enterprise, mainly because the device was not ready for individuals, but it was still pretty high price points, and the big enterprises were interested in purchasing bulk purchase of this kind of device like HoloLens, right? So things were exciting, was growing, and we're increasing our kind of enterprise revenue. And the challenge that we saw was the headset was still a little too heavy, a little too clunky for broader adoption. And that's when the pandemic happened.
What I realized, the power of immersive work experience without having to be physically together, really during the COVID time, that's when the entire world was forced to work from home.
Oh yeah.
And we couldn't be together. As long as you are online and in a immersive working environment, then the physical constraints are removed.
Yep.
And I guess we had this almost 3 years of massive forced work from home. How did Spatial respond to this massive change? And were you ready to take on this challenge?
Yeah, great question. So we were caught by surprise and of course saddened by all the impact that it had on society. But at the same time, part of us was like, this may be a moment where we can prove to the world this notion of the collaborative 3D remote working can really help the world, like really serve the humanity. Like everyone was so isolated, and even our employees felt like extremely isolated and had a lot of fun just having meetings in this VR and AR. So we thought it was in some way, it's a weird word to use in this context, but opportunity for the company to really serve the people who are impacted by the situation. The reality was that, in fact, when the pandemic hit, lots of people who hit us up and say, hey, we need this technology right now. And we started thinking about taking what we built for AR and VR to today's device, which is the laptop, a computer, and mobile. So that's how we evolved the AR, VR only application into this shared 3D interactive application where people can publish their 3D experience and content online and share and have a shared experience. Was interesting in terms of the timing because that's when the Facebook changed their name to Meta. Everyone started talking about the Metaverse. So we naturally turned our product into so-called the Metaverse at the time. And we originally built this technology for people to work within, but people started having events and have it exhibit. So it turned our users turned our product into more of a cultural product than a work product.
Maybe we start from the time, because I remember there were parties happening, there was exhibitions, literally galleries doing their exhibitions online, people, companies hosting events. Maybe tell us about those days and that basically went from just being a VR, XR software company to really all-encompassing computer, tablet, mobile, VR, XR in one place. And I think still to the date, Spatial the only company that could do that. So tell us about experience.
When we brought our AR, the kind of VR 3D shared application to the web and mobile, we initially thought people would use it for work. So the idea was like this is like a 3D, semi-3D Zoom on your laptop. Instead of using it for work, like people started having exhibit, started having an event, especially like a big companies like McDonald's built their cultural event series on Spatial platform and shared the link with their fans. And there's like a brands who started using Spatial for hosting their online fashion show, and Christie's dropping their first kind of online NFT auction for the first time in the history of and so a lot of this excitement was there, and there's been a lot of push from us, but also from our creators to make what can be hosted on Spatial a lot more interactive than we initially intended. We started gradually turning them into more of a interactive game-like experience platform instead of just a 3D model and avatar. We started letting people build and publish the game on platform. It's almost like a Roblox for web and mobile, a modern Roblox for web and mobile, or some people call it like YouTube for gaming, which is quite exciting, but it's also challenging because if you look at how some of this other UGC platform really took off, a lot of these platforms actually took off because of the first party hit. There was a hit game, like Fortnite had their own game that was super popular. Roblox had a set of hit games. So we had the same kind of thinking, like how can we lift our platform with the first party hit? So that pushed us to think about like maybe we should build the first party games. It takes such a long time for any platform like UGC platform to organically grow. We did a lot of experiments on different types of games and web games, mobiles. Not a lot of them were successful in terms of the stickiness and retention, monetization. There's been a lot of learning about how to build and how to run a successful game, but that didn't really lead to like a groundbreaking success necessarily on our platform. That was creating the stage for us to think about, wait a minute, weren't we good at VR? That's kind of how we got into this thinking of, so we're supposed to be really good at VR and AR, and we built up this pretty good expertise on gaming and gaming monetization along this way, which was not the original intention of the company when it was founded, but now we have the VR expertise and AR and gaming expertise and monetization. We have enterprise grade engineering capacity. We have a pretty good understanding about how to grow the community and social media. Like what if you merge all this thing into one experience? So that's when Animal Company happened.
So Jinha, tell us about Animal Company. Why was it so successful compared to the previous games you produced? And what's unique about the feature, the content, the interactiveness among the users?
So the Animal Company is a VR social horror game, which is a mashup of a few popular genres. The core idea for the animal company when we started was, let's not just build a game that's fun to play, but the game has to be really fun to watch from the streamer's perspective and as a social media content. And the reason why we thought it was important is like what we found out during this journey of trying and failing at this, making the successful games before, is that a lot of games and any entertainment content these days, it's not really, it's really hard to discover a good content, but a lot of, especially like Gen Alpha and Gen Z audience, the Gen Alpha audience are, they're looking at their hero streamers, and they're finding games from TikTok and YouTube instead of just going to the Steam chart to look at what to play next. But it really has to be integrated with how you can grow the social media aspect of this IP. So from the day one when we prototyped this game for VR, this game has to be not only fun to play. I mean, of course, it's important to for this to be fun to play, but it has to be so fun to watch others playing that too. And it could be like a small elements, like how the character physics move, like a jiggly butt of our characters, or it has to have some kind of emotional components. Like, so the Animal Company is a game where you can be any animal character that you want, and that itself is your own self-expression. Like, what is your personality? Are you more like a monkey, or are you a cat? And you can go on an adventure with your friends, and met by the monsters who's gonna chase you, is gonna get some of your friends, and you're helping each other to escape from there, or you can betray each other. That can create a lot of emotional dramas as a part of the gameplay. So these real raw emotional elements of like you kind of scream and you kind of shout to your friends like, hey, come over, I can help you, and we're getting screwed, let's just get out of here. Like that kind of real raw moments that happen in the game. To us, like creating that moments was the key from the day one. Even before we had any compelling graphics, we wanted to make sure that core social elements of screamable elements exist in the game, and we found it through prototyping. And everyone was like, this could work. Even if it's like clunky, and it was very raw prototype, and we uploaded our primitive version of the game as an early access game, and it already started creating a lot of buzz. That's quite cool. And a month later, our CCU went up like 100 times, and I was like, what is going on? Like, why are people like reacting so strongly? And I think the key is to like, if you look at the TikTok videos of how the players capture our content and upload, there's always the moment when either it's like really funny and it's super emotional and very social, and anyone who's watching that game can relate some of their life to that gameplay and that moment. For us, like that was, we were engineering that moments, and it worked out.
Sort of double click into the Animal Company. What are some of the lessons learned about the Gen Alpha, their interactions in your game? Also, the idea that you described is not something that only Animal Company can do. There are hundreds of other larger gaming companies who could have done it with more resources and with wider distribution. So what are some of the aspects that you think really did well and let you maintain the leadership position in this category?
Great question. So I guess the Gen Alpha audience, we can just say teenagers as of 2025. They're extremely digital native. But the more important thing about them is they don't just consume content. They love creating content and share. They don't just play the game. They love capturing the content from the game and share. And they're extremely expressive and creative generation. And like a Roblox, they don't just play the game. They build the games for the Roblox. It's like creator consumer. It's like already blended in from like very early age for them. We were thinking like if you really want to have success with this new generation, this game loop should include a lot of these creative components. In our case, that's capturing the content and tell their own stories with the game and share online. So that's part of the game loop. It's not just what's happening in VR. It's what our game loop includes what happens outside of the VR. Like you play the VR game, you capture content in VR and share it on social media. And that gets picked up by a potential new player who's joining the Discord and hang out with the community. And they express a lot of ideas for what we should build further. We do a lot of weekly polls like, hey, do you want this feature or that? And then we're taking a lot of feedback directly from our players. They love when we ask these questions. So that whole loop itself, we call that a game. And it's not just what's happening in VR. And they do care about authenticity. I think the best way to get their heart is the authenticity. They love the raw content instead of the polished content. They love to hear about the raw voice from the people who they follow. They love hearing the voice of somebody who they respect. And that could be influencer, that could be a famous figure in a different field. And that's one of the most important factors for how to win this generation as a content creator.
What I remember, it started off as a very small team. Yes, you could have an early success, but to maintain the leadership in the gaming is extremely tough, and it's also competitive. So what do you think bigger companies haven't caught on?
Well, first of all, our team is extremely talented, that for sure.
Yeah.
But more specifically, I think to have a kind of success that we had in this new market, you need to have a few of the following, if not all of the following. You need to know what feels great in VR, which is a relatively rare expertise. And we as a company have worked together for 7 years. A lot of our core members have stayed for like 6-7 years, and which we're very proud of. And we've been building different toys and mechanics, even in our like VR meetings. There's so many elements that we think it's like super fun, and we've already like built in our muscle to like whatever we build in VR, as smooth as possible, as fun as possible. That is like a big differentiating factor. But also we built up our expertise in gaming and monetization along the way when we're trying to lift this UGC gaming platform. And the enterprise grade engineering capacity is like a huge asset. The part of how we stand out is we do a weekly update, which is a quite crazy schedule if you think about it. You're basically updating your game every week, and that I don't think it's easy to catch up with our speed if you're a different big company who's trying to win this game generation. And this is combined by our community and social media muscle to know how to listen to the community, how to serve them, how to play with them, and how to involve them into our creative process. And all this in this like US market, I really sort of had a good blending of DNAs that made this unique success that I would say.
Jinha, Animal Company is the highest grossing VR game on Meta right now. What does that mean for you? It's a successful milestone, but what's next for you? What do you have in mind?
First and foremost, we feel very thankful for our community to show this much love and caring for what we do, and it really energizes us to like serve them, our players, help our players, and give them the best experience possible. Just being on top of the Meta store, we don't take it for granted, and we think this as encouragement from our community to go further and to create the best experience ever in VR gaming. We have a lot of plans, and there's a lot more that can happen to the core game itself. I feel like we're just starting. I don't think this game is near complete. If you look at the Meta store, we still have that early access tag, which means that we're not complete as a game. There's a lot that we're planning that will basically make the game a ultimate playground for our fans and players. They can not only just go on an adventure, maybe they can make something together, they can compete, but in a healthy way. We just released our different game mode a few weeks ago, and I think it has had a really good initial reaction. It can mean so many different things to be in this 3D social entertainment together. But if you fast forward, I don't think the Animal Company IP will stay within one platform. I think this can be really relevant for different types of games or different format of entertainment. And it's already the more people are consuming Animal Company as a form of videos, not just the gameplay. So it gives us a lot of stuff to think about what if the Animal Company is more of a IP that's perfect kind of stage for these creators to tell their own stories. I think the possibility is limitless. This is really just the beginning. We feel extremely thankful for our community to show this much love.
Yeah.
And we want to build the best experience possible.
Yeah. Also, I know that your team has grown in size. Who are you looking for? How do you make sure they gel into this very unique culture you have of fast release, maximum interaction with users? Who are you looking for, and what's your strategy of growing your team?
I think the first criteria is you need to love the game. You need to love the audience, and you truly care about the end players. Like, if you just build game mechanics, you don't play with the actual players, it's not great. The great thing about our team is we're always with our players and community. We're in real time responding to the Discord, and we do play with their game. They recognize some of our dev by their game name, and then they're celebrities within, and actually becoming outside of the game too. But within the game, they have a lot of followers. We're scaling quite fast, but they should really have a true care for the players and love the game and love playing the game with the players too.
Before we finish off, I want to go back to Spatial.io.
Yep.
The Spatial Inc. is the company. Spatial, you have a unique situation where there's Spatial.io that has been the go-to place for a lot of brands, creators to create this immersive experience on that's accessible by many devices. You have an outside success on Animal Company. What's your vision for Spatial.io?
So if the story of Animal Company was going back to the root of the VR root of the company, the story for the Spatial.io platform is going back to the enterprise root of the company. So what happened when we started spinning off the Animal Company from our gaming effort is that when we look at the platform that we built, it's primarily for the UGC creators. The creators love building on Spatial, but there are also the enterprises like the big companies, like Fortune 1000 companies, who really went above and beyond our expectation about the quality of experience that they built on Spatial and ran for their own kind of internal. So when we set out to build this UGC platform for the creators, it was not just the individual creators or developers, but there are a lot of enterprises or educational organizations who started picking up Spatial SDK and built amazing experiences on their own, which exceeded our expectation about what's possible on the platform. So for example, the Walmart launched their gamified marketing series, which is a beautiful web game, few episodes, one of the first kind of episodic gaming series on web, which is the quality is almost like PlayStation, but that runs on the web browser without downloading or installing. So they had a really successful campaign with this gamified marketing series, in a sense that they were able to appeal to this new Gen Alpha and Gen Z gaming audience in a way that was impossible with other platforms, because we were the only high quality gaming platform that allows people to play this game with just a click without downloading or installing. The same reasons, like the fashion show, the gamified fashion show online, when the CEO of Hugo Boss published their Spatial Hugo Boss link on their LinkedIn, it basically lots of fans flew in because they didn't have to download anything. Like they don't need to install the new game. They can literally just click a link, and that gets them into the beautiful web game. This is how a lot of the brands started adopting the Spatial platform for their gamified marketing or training. And there are also educational organizations such as Korea Tech, for example. They're starting to move a lot of their educational modules in the form of this new kind of gamified education format on Spatial, using Spatial SDK. The reason why they're so excited about it is they either have to choose, in traditionally this is training and education. They have to choose between, when it comes to remote training, the video training or the on-site training. But video training, they have a lot of problem with engagement. The students don't follow all the way. They just have the video running. they don't get engaged. When they turn this into a gamified education modules, then it's super engaging. You can check the progress, and students are a lot more engaged. So they had a lot of initial success with just moving their videos into the spatial gamified education modules. So there's a lot of organizations who are looking into adopting these new ways to train their remote employees this way. And that goes to vocational training, universities, and general educational orgs for adopting spatial as a great creative tool for their students to pick up how to think about the game development and how to build in 3D and this metaverse.
So Jinha, I think Spatial.io, to my positive surprise, had a great success in Southeast Asia, especially in Thailand, in Malaysia, in Singapore, where I'm living right now. Why do you think that is? Your team is primarily based in the US.
Oh, yeah.
Although you're Korean, Southeast Asia still had some very good traction and still continues to grow. What are your observations?
So the Southeast Asian market is very interesting from our perspective. Their willingness to adopt the new technology is amazing, and their infrastructure is really strong. So it's the market that's ready for embracing like new innovation and trends that are happening in this digital consumer interaction. And when we worked with some organization in Malaysia and Thailand, even if some of the technology was not fully ready for the mass consumer, they were always willing to work with us to improve it together and test it. And this flexibility and like the willingness to embrace this nature of new technology was like really amazing to work with.
So Jinha, tell us about your experience working with Pine and me. We've known each other for a very long time. We've worked at Samsung. Probably that's around the time when I met you, when you're thinking about starting a company. We had a lot of discussion. I've seen you from really the beginning when you just had 10 pages of presentation on what you're building until now. Yeah, I would love to hear your views on it.
Well, first of all, thank you for being one of the early supporters of our journey. It's been an honor. I don't take it for granted, and we feel very thankful for your and Pine's continuous support of this journey. I think it's been really special to have Pine on our side because you have a very unique combination of expertise of a good understanding of tech, but also like the IP and entertainment. Your connection in Asia really helped us thinking about different possibilities for the platform. And now that we're deeply tied into this entertainment industry and with this game and IP, I think we're looking forward to working closely with you and your network to really take this what we have to the next level going forward. So it's been an honor to work together.
Thank you.